Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Reese. Shortly, we will be joined by Karina from Polaris Dog Training to set off on the very first Tuesday Talk of 2024 on the topic of predation in our dogs. So I suppose just as a background for anyone that's new joining, we run these talks almost every Tuesday as often as we can, because we come in contact with so many brilliant dog professionals in the Irish dog community, that have so many insights and so much knowledge to share. So we really enjoy when we're joined by someone to to hear about what they have to say, and we're looking forward to this topic this evening. As people are already starting to come in as well, as always on this format, we will keep things very informal and casual. So we will be making wild generalizations that might not necessarily be relevant to you or your dog or your situation. So please do speak with a certified professional if you have any concerns. And we will shortly be joined by Karina. I think one of the most important things as well is that, to say is Happy New Year. I haven't seen most of you in the new year, and I don't think we've even been, on a live. We've been very quiet and enjoying the kind of quieter period of the first few days of the year. So hopefully everyone has got over the madness and fireworks of New Year's Eve and is ready to kind of take a relaxed start into the year. And the live now. So hopefully she'll get a invite. Hello, Karina. Can you
Got it.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you good, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me. I can hear you and see you well as well.
Brilliant.
Would you do us the pleasure immediately of introducing yourself, and then I'll introduce myself and we'll jump into the brilliant topic then after that.
I am Karina. I am the head trainer of Polaris Dog Training, based in North County, Dublin. I have 8 years experience, 5 years working in doggy daycare, and I've been out on my own since 2020.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that introduction. And for anyone joining in that doesn't know me, I'm Killian from Reese. We set up our company about 18 months ago, and we've been running a local Irish dog brand, providing high quality products for your pets. And you can check us out on our website after listening to this brilliant topic on predation in dogs. So just to get things started and a gentle start into it, it's the very first live of 2024 for me. So what even is predation?
So predation is our dog's genetic need to hunt. So it is their instinctual need for survival. So when we see dogs, you'll see them when they're chasing squirrels or barking at squirrels, that instinctual need to catch and kill animals is the base root of predation. With our domestic dogs, though, we see elements of the original predation sequence that we have bred to basically do certain jobs for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first question is, you mentioned domestic dogs. So when I hear that, I'm guessing there's a historical element to this. This instinct didn't just come up, when we started having dogs around the house. This is something that comes from much earlier, right? Yeah,
this would be a genetically anchored behavior in our dogs. It's an instinctual need that they need. It's survival need. So this would be one of the leftover behaviors from domestication. So wolves will hunt and they follow the same predation sequence. However, our dogs no longer need it to survive. But yeah, it would be a genetic leftover from through the domestication process.
But we're not equating dogs to wolves.
No. There's about between 15 and 30,000 years of domestic evolution between our dogs' common ancestor, which is wolves, and the dogs we see today. Not to mention hundreds of different breeds that have all been domesticated and bred for different purposes. So there's a huge difference between wild wolves and their need for predation and our dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wasn't trying to lead you down a path there into giving a very controversial answer. Of course, I guessed that you were going to let us know that. But just to clear things up, I think it's at the beginning of these lives, we always like to begin at a very, very basic level. And that's not me saying that, pretending that I know a whole lot about this topic. But I think it's really important that everyone can participate, and we don't want to give, a wrong impression, assuming that someone knows what we're getting at. So we don't necessarily mean that dogs are equal to wolves or should be treated like that, but some of this behavior is obviously coming from that genetic line.
Exactly, yeah. So whereas wolves will hunt instinctually to survive, our dogs will just do it because, oh, there's a thing, I want to chase it. It feels good to chase it. I'm getting a dopamine release by doing this. Or chasing, I'll get further into the sequence in a moment, whereas wolves won't just run and chase after every single thing that they find. They calculate what will be, oh, will I be able to catch this or won't I? Whereas our dogs pretty much do it for fun, really.
And I suppose that in humans, we talk about the lizard brain, right? So it could be similar to why we sleep more in winter and want to stay up later in summer, or why we've got flight or fight reaction. Right? Is this where we're okay?
Exactly the same. So when our dogs go into this predation mode, we are looking at their instinctual behaviors taken over. So when we have dogs that are struggling with recall and stuff like that, that's the predation taken over. So a lot of our training kind of goes out the window because we're looking at a genetically anchored behavior, which is very hard to train against because we're breeding dogs selectively for these behaviors. And so they're just performing their instinctual needs.
And I think maybe now is a good time as well, because if I hadn't Googled beforehand what these behaviors might be, I might be sitting here wondering, well, what behaviors could we be talking about? So what types of things could come from the predation kind of instincts that dogs would have?
So the predation sequence, I'm going to kind of just talk you through it so we can kind of equate to what we might be able to see in our dogs. So the most common, let me kind of start. So when we breed dogs, we breed them for selective traits on this predation sequence. But if we were looking at the sequence in its totality, in particularly with wolves, we would always look at the seeking and orientation first, which is our dogs and their wild cousins searching and seeking for prey. Mm-hmm. So often we'll see the seeking and searching and orientating usually comes in the form of sniffing. So if you take any of our dogs, when you bring them to a lot of long grass and stuff like that, they start zigzagging. They're actually tracking where they can smell that an animal has been there. So they are orientating as close to the freshest version of the scent that they can possibly find. Mm-hmm. The second version on the second step on the predation sequence is usually sight. And we'll see this a lot with greyhounds and lurchers, which I have 3 of myself, where they're constantly scanning the horizon, or they might actually spot something on the horizon and they begin to fixate. So they lock in basically on their target. Chase would be the one we see probably most common. You go down to your local park of a weekend and you'll see lots of dogs running around chasing squirrels. This is where the actual hunt actually begins. So they've orientated, they've seen their prey, and then they just go. Now, if we were looking at wolves versus dogs go, there it is, and then they go. But sometimes what we might also see stalking or creeping as well. So if you think of like a cheetah, you can always see that little prey, that kind of stalking, or you can see it in domestic cats as well. who all follow the same predation sequence. So we see a lot of these elements every day in the park. Then you'll see, so generally we very rarely get to certain aspects later on in the predation sequence for most domestic dogs. So you have your grab bite, which is them catching the animal. You have your kill bite, which is killing the animal. Then you have parading or possessing, which we see an awful lot with gun dogs, because they love to hold stuff in their mouth, parade it around and say, look at me, I'm deadly, I found it. We have dissection and then consuming. In domestic dogs, you will very, very rarely see a dog go from point one right through the sequence.
But and this is a question now. Obviously, our domestic dogs generally aren't out there to hunt and kill their prey, because they've got lovely home cooked meals and lovely whatever they've got prepared for them. So they're not out there for that. Obviously, we all know that. But is there something biologically that's kind of, do they get a kick out of a lot of these, kind of instinctual behaviors? Is it adrenaline that they get from playing chase, or is it something from their biology that they get a kind of a kick out of it?
Yeah, so a lot of the times, you'll hear dog trainers talk about kind of like self-reinforcing behaviors, or when we talk about, so like dog trainers will use a lot of like snuffle mats, search games, stuff like that, because it creates a dopamine release for our dogs. So the searching and the seeking is a dopamine hit for our dogs. So it's really reinforcing. And depending on the dog, depends on where they get their dopamine release. So some majority of dogs love scenting out, love orientating, love tracking. That would be a huge dopamine release for most of them. And then others, depending on the breed, depends on where. So like sighthounds will get huge amount of reinforcement from actually chasing. As opposed, sometimes they might catch, but the majority of it is in the chase.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess where all these different elements come together is where we as lay people kind of get onto the point of, oh, my dog is food driven, so that's more of like I reward my training with treats, or my dog loves rope toys, or tug of war is a big thing for us, or squeaky toys. Are these all kind of indicators of where your dog probably gets their kick out in this predatory instinct then?
Yeah, so like a lot of the time when we talk about dogs having a high work drive, a lot of that comes from the predatory sequence. So if we look at like say like the breeds of gun dogs, so we're talking about Springers, Cocker Spaniels, Retrievers, you let a spaniel into long grass and they will work all day, run through the long grass looking for things to find. So it really depends on the dog, on their intrinsic motivators. So if you have a dog that has been specifically bred to work certain tasks, they will get a lot of reinforcement from just working. So we look at like collies, who are very biddable. They get so much reinforcement just from working with a human, versus sighthounds, who generally their main reinforcement is chasing down the thing that they're trying to catch. They wouldn't generally be regarded as kind of trainery dogs. But yeah, it depends on the task that we've bred them for, where they get their kicks. So working for food, again, still creates a dopamine response. So we would be looking in that seeking orientating, they're looking for that reinforcement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, this is where breeds, I guess, come from as well. I suppose a lot of us mightn't have put a lot of thought into it or known the background, but I suppose people said, okay, I need a dog that's good at swimming, so therefore I need kind of to make some sort of a poodle, or I need a dog to be able to pull massive loads, so then the husky kind of comes into view. This is all kind of a man-made in the way that we kind of selectively bred then to create breeds to do specific tasks.
Yeah, exactly. So we have basically cherry-picked certain elements of dogs' natural drive. So like huskies, you'll be less kind of looking at the predatory sequence and more kind of on their stamina and their strength. Whereas sighthounds, gun dogs, collies, a lot of that we would be looking at on the predatory sequence. So we've cherry-picked certain elements of the predatory sequence and bred specifically for that, in order for them to not just perform the tasks, but enjoy performing the tasks. Because if the dog's having fun, it makes the training so much easier.
And I suppose even dogs that we now definitely wouldn't really associate that much with being working dogs are bred for a specific working purpose, but like the Jack Russells and the Frenchies and things like that were all originally, I think, ratting dogs, right?
Yeah.
Mostly. So
exactly. That's why you have a lot of terriers. Terriers I kind of always equate very similar to sighthounds. They're just like a mini version. They're very, very let's go. But kind of where terriers were bred, they were bred, like you said, for ratting, for small animals. Terriers love digging because it's all part of the it's under here. That's seeking motivation to find the thing that they're looking for. And that's why a lot of terriers love digging. But yeah, so we cherry picked very specific traits from each dog for a certain task. So sighthounds and terriers would be very similar, and we were looking at if we were just looking for a predatory training plan for both breeds, for sighthounds and for terriers, it'd be very similar. Terriers are just really small versions. They're not as fast.
That's fair. No, it's a very, very interesting comparison, and I've never thought about it like that before, so that's really interesting to think about. And I suppose now that you've mentioned things like digging and chasing and things like that, where might these behaviors get some dogs into a bit of trouble? And I'm thinking already, kind of like you said about digging, but also things like livestock, cats, ducks, things like that, right?
Yeah. So when we look at predation, and a lot of people go, "Oh, my dog has never chased an animal," but their instinctual need is still there. So especially in particular if we're near farms and maybe even in the mountains where we have a lot of wildlife like deer and stuff like that, we always have to be very, very careful, because you never know when that instinct is going to be triggered. Like if dogs have never really encountered a deer before, never really encountered a horse before, or cows or sheep, it could trigger something very instinctual in them. But like even chasing after cats, if they're fast enough, the cat could be in trouble. Squirrels in the park, you see a lot of dogs chasing after squirrels, and then they kind of get disorientated and they don't know where their owners are anymore. So a lot of this is their thinking brain is no longer activated, and they're just running after the thing that they see.
And presumably, I mean, if farm animals get injured, dogs can get into very serious legal situations as well, right? I mean,
yeah. Like we know, I think it was last year, the year before, I think there was a case where there was a dog shot up in Wicklow. Farmers are entitled to protect their flock, so it's always something that we as dog owners need to be very, very wary of when we know we're near wildlife that is protected or farm animals, because our dogs' lives could be in serious jeopardy if they should worry livestock in particular.
And even, I guess, in front of a court of law afterwards, if a dog was thought to be dangerous to the public in any way, I'm sure that a court order could easily get them put down, unfortunately. So
very unfortunately,
it's really worthwhile kind of keeping that in mind when, like you say, when you're out there and think you're really enjoying Killarney National Park and having a great time off lead, and then your dog meets a deer for the first time, you could end up in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So like in that regard, anytime there could be a serious doubt, anytime there's larger, like I think we've all seen that Fenton video that was on YouTube years ago with the dog chasing the herd of deer. Anytime there's any sort of animals like that around, we really would want to err on the side of caution. So we will be implementing like our long lines, ensuring that our dogs can't run off and can't put themselves, other animals, and even the general public in danger. If you have a dog chasing a herd of deer, you're putting everyone else that's in that vicinity in danger as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned training as well. So can we use some of these instincts in our training? And can we, then on the other side, can we train, for keeping in mind and being very mindful of these instincts that our dog might already have?
Yeah, so depending on what our dog was bred for, we can use their instinctual needs to actually train. So there's so many different dog sports that deal with kind of predation. So like we'd be looking at like scent detection, tracking, man trailing. There are some like sports like lure coursing as well, that kind of all channel our dog's instinctual needs. And even if you look at like collies, like there's specific dog sports just for collies called tri-ball. So you actually teach your dog how to basically herd a gigantic yoga ball, which helps them with their instinctual needs, because they are a working breed. And so it's not just us being able to use their genetic instincts, but it's also us being able to offer them outlets, because this is an instinctual need and it's something that we see every single day. So being able to offer them outlets where they can perform these tasks safely is very, very important.
And someone might say, okay, you're saying that you're providing them an outlet for this instinctual need that they have, but someone might say, oh, am I training them? Am I reinforcing that behavior? For example, like the ripping apart things. Are they going, if I'm teaching them to rip apart a box with treats inside it, are they then going to rip apart my sofa? Does this get asked quite a lot as well?
Well, I think if our dogs, a lot of sofa ripping is usually distress related, unless the dog is really, really, really good at it. But no, so these would be instincts that our dogs automatically have. So dissection, which would be like ripping apart boxes and paper, it's an instinctual need that they already have. So we can offer them outlets by allowing them to tear up stuff, but if they discover that they can tear up stuff, they're going to do it regardless. So offering them these outlets allows them to perform the behavior without risking our sofas. Because the likelihood is like, I don't need to let my dog chase a squirrel for my dog to want to chase a squirrel. They're going to want to do that anyway. So if I can offer them outlets for that chasing instinct, it never fully replaces what they want to do. But it makes it a little bit less reinforcing, because they can still get an element of that reinforcement by doing other tasks.
And I love enrichment, and we've heard the word quite a lot on these talks, so I hardly guessed that was going to be the answer. But what types of enrichment can we think about at home now? If people are sitting at home, it's January, it's time to come out with new resolutions, come up with new ideas to help our dogs' minds, even when we can't maybe go out all the time. But flirt poles are probably something that the average person doesn't have at home. Is that something that we could incorporate for certain breeds and certain dogs? Are there other types of enrichment that that you can even make at home yourself that might be interesting?
Yeah, like there's even elements of like if we're doing training, so we could be doing trick training, and by even bowling the treat along the ground, that's instinctually allowing our dog to chase it. So these little things, so you might have a dog that might not be interested in the flirt pole. Like myself, I've got 3 lurchers at the moment. I've had 6 over the last 10 years, and only 2 have ever been interested in the flirt pole. So you kind of have to figure out different ways. What does your dog particularly enjoy? And then we can kind of look at how can I recreate this. So for my guy Milo, for my whippet in particular, he loves shredding up things. He loves it. He loves seeking out things. We bring home the shopping on a Saturday. He sticks his head into every bag because he loves searching and exploring. So we create like these little box games for him. So we basically box in a box, and there's lots of paper, so stuff for him to seek out the treats that are in the box inside the paper, for him to shred the box apart, to shred the paper apart. So that allows him to perform the elements of this predation sequence that he most loves, which is the dissection element and the consuming element, because he gets to eat a hell of a load of chicken while he's doing it as well. But it really depends on what your dog in particular is bred for. How can we apply what they would most enjoy? So if we're looking at bully breeds, a lot of shepherd breeds, we'd be looking at lots of games of tug. We'd be looking at little scent work games in the house. So literally, so you can teach your dog how to search out for a piece of chicken. It doesn't have to be over complex. We can do the most simple reinforcement with the least amount of effort. Put your dog into their bed, hide a piece of food, and then tell them to go search for it.
Definitely, and actually, now that you say it, it's something that we need to pull back out of the bag of tricks. Is just scattering some treats on the stairs. And Ruby goes
Yeah,
all the way up, and it sounds so simple, but she loves just seeking them out in every single step. And we move that outside in the summertime and just scatter in the grass. It's basically the same game of
yeah.
search, but she's like, oh wow, this is so new and interesting every time I bring it out, because I forget about it the next week again, as does she.
But you can see that then in your dog's behavior, that the second she's like, oh, we're playing this game, I love this game so much. And so many of, like, even my dog walking dogs, like, we have certain areas of certain parks that we go to and we play our sniffy games in those areas. So, like, there was at a point before Christmas, I was doing, if anyone follows me on Instagram, they know I do a lot of pate trees, which is where I smear pate on bark of trees, and the dogs can search all the different trees to try and find the source of the pate. And I might smear different parts, so higher and lower elevation, on the tree. So they have to seek out whereabouts on the bark of this tree it is. But there was one particular tree that I kept using when I was out with Lucy, the little cabochon. And every time we walked past it, she'd run up to the same tree. So we use kind of a little bit of enrichment intertwined with predation and a little bit of predictability as well. So she knew exactly what we were going to do when we went to that section of the park. And it was really funny. She'd run up to the tree before there was anything even on it, and she'd be sniffing, going, saying, where the hell is it? These are just little things that we can do out on walks that can offer our dogs outlets and elements of their natural instincts, but in a very, very safe way.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And I suppose, like, to wrap things up, because I know it's a huge topic, and we've literally, like I say this every week, only scratched the surface of it. But all in all, predation sounds like something we should be scared of. As dog families, or our dogs humans. But I suppose there's a lot of potential to use it. And do you have any closing thoughts and advice for people that they might think about?
Yeah, I think, like, when people probably hear the phrase, oh, predator or predatory behavior, but every dog breed has it, every canid has it. Our dogs are part of the canid family. It's completely natural. It's something that they will always kind of perform. Even smaller toy dogs like Cavaliers. I used to have a Cavalier myself, and Daisy's favorite thing to do was scent work on snuffle mats. They will always show different elements of it. Very few dogs will ever run through the whole sequence, but I think understanding that it's not something that people have to be afraid of, that this is the natural drive that this particular breed has to do certain tasks, and looking at it and seeing how we can help our dogs within that, and how they can safely execute elements of the predation sequence in a safe manner, in which nobody or no wildlife has to get hurt, or no dogs run off. Yeah, it's something that I think not a lot of people are aware of, but every single dog has this instinct in them.
And it's nearly like taking kind of a map of behaviors, and saying, look, this is the secrets to behind, how to tap into what your dog loves, right? When you think about it.
Yeah, like, I think, particularly for me, like, I love scent work. So being able to see, like, my dogs and using their natural drive to orientate and seek out the reinforcement, like, just seeing them work and how much happier it makes them. And that as well, like, when they get to perform these behaviors, it really helps to calm them and satisfy them as well. Like, scent work, trick training, all of this type of stuff and enrichment, like all types of enrichment, can really help as well with a lot of problem behavior. So if we're seeing our dogs perform certain behaviors in the park or a home that are linked to the predation sequence, if we can tap into that and offer them outlets, we can start to see a reduction in those problem behaviors. So if you have, in particular, so I work an awful lot with sighthounds, obviously, and just like we obsession. A lot of the time we see an awful lot of frustration in sighthounds because they can't get to perform their main drive in the sequence, which is chasing. So if we can offer them different elements of that they can safely perform, such as the seeking and the orientating, even allowing them to look at wildlife without chasing, teaching them to disengage with the wildlife, offering them enrichment where they can dissect things as well. It gives them outlets for something that is they really need to do.
And by dissection, you mean like pulling apart a cardboard box or something similar? It doesn't have to be the yeah.
No. But like even a lot of people, like when they get like new dog beds for their dogs or new dog toys and the dog shreds it immediately, that's dissection. That was inherently reinforcing for your dog. So like my guy Cruz, he doesn't really like dissecting paper, but he will really enjoys fluffy toys. So like over the Christmas, Pet Stop have a lot of those gonk toys with the beards, and they're his favorite. He just pulls the fluff off them and then he's done with it. So that's a reinforcing behavior for him that offers him an outlet in a very safe way.
No, it's actually brilliant. You've just put a whole new light on things, because again, I've had conversations with people that say, God, my dog, whatever type of dog it is, my dog at home rips apart every toy and he loves it, but he has it for 5 minutes and it's gone. But you know, maybe we just need to rethink it and not look at from the perspective of, I wanted him to have that as a keepsake forever, and maybe, you know, that was so enriching for the little dog's brain, and now they're super happy. That could be something really positive that you could look at as well. So it's brilliant.
Thank you. But yeah, exactly. Like we have to look at it like, what is the dog getting out of it? It's not really what we're getting out of it. What is their dog going to get out of this? And if they choose to shred the toy that we just got them, I mean, it's their toy. It's their instinct. It's what they enjoy doing. Some dogs, like my other guy Nico, he preserves toys. He loves playing tug, but he doesn't really destroy a lot of toys. A lot of his reinforcement comes from grab bite. So he loves a game of tug, or he loves a game of flirt pole. So even though they're all the same breed, they're not all following the same pattern. So like they're all lurchers, but they all love different elements of the predation sequence. And like even my girl dog Amber, who unfortunately she passed her in the summer, she only once in 10 years that I had her chased something. She never chased. She didn't find a lot of joy in that. Hers was all about the seeking, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And so different dogs, even though they're all the same breed, they will all have elements that they enjoy the most. So it's up to us as their guardians to try and provide them with that as best we can.
Thank you so much, Karina, for helping us to kind of unlock some of the secrets of what's going on behind our dogs' behaviours and their minds. And, you know, it's definitely opened a whole new world to me. I know I'm going to be walking around for the next at least 2 to 3 weeks saying, oh, that's predation behaviour there, what part of the sequence is that dog over there doing? I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for it and probably recognising it so much more. So appreciate all of that. And guys, if you are hoping to figure out a little bit more, I know that you post an awful lot on Instagram, so check out at Polaris Dog Training. I think your website is Polaris Dog Training.
Yep,
if that's right.
Polaris Dog Training. Yeah,
exactly. If you guys aren't following us, we're Ruby Reese Official. Thank you so much, Karina, once again. I really appreciate your time and your insights, and I really hope to speak with you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.